tense, building. There's a version of this story where Calloway folds immediately. That's not what happened. Instead, cornered, he did what desperate men in power often do. He escalated. He called in every favor ASHWIND had, hired a black market extraction team to recover the drive by force, and in the process made the single worst decision of his career. He sent Doran Vale to lead it. Somber, reflective. Doran had spent 3 months telling himself the silence in that meeting room hadn't made him guilty. He told himself again as he stood in Kaelan's doorway with 4 hired hunters behind him, ordered to retrieve the drive by any means necessary. Quiet, almost gentle. "You don't have to do this," Kaelan said quietly. And for one instant, something in his voice actually did sound like the man Doran used to call his brother. Defeated, resigned. "I don't have a choice," Doran said. And that, more than anything, was the truest thing anyone from ASHWIND had said this entire story. Fast, intense. The fight that followed lasted less than 90 seconds. Not because Kaelan wanted it short, but because there was nothing left in that hallway that could actually challenge him anymore. The 4 hired hunters went down without landing a single confirmed hit. Doran was the last one standing, shaking, his weapon lowered before Kaelan even had to ask him to lower it. Measured, restrained. Kaelan could have ended it there. Every ounce of restraint he still had told him to. Pause, quiet. Instead, he asked one question. Cold, deliberate. "Was it worth it? Everything you let happen to me? Was staying comfortable inside ASHWIND worth watching them bury me alive?" Heavy, mournful. Doran didn't answer. He didn't need to. The silence was answer enough, and Kaelan realized, standing there, that the version of Doran he used to admire had died the same night he did. The only difference was that Kaelan came back from it, and Doran never would. Building momentum, determined. The drive went public that same week, not through Kaelan directly, but through Mira's son, who, upon learning the full truth of what had been done and covered up, walked it straight into association headquarters herself and resigned from ASHWIND on the spot. Little did Calloway know, the one person he never suspected of turning against him would be the one who ended him. Sharp, satisfying. The fallout was total. ASHWIND's guild license was suspended, pending a full criminal investigation. Calloway was arrested on charges of attempted murder, obstruction, and conspiracy, the first case of its kind in association history, and the headline every network ran with for weeks. Ferris Adkins, who had given the retreat order, testified against the director in exchange for leniency, admitting on record that Kaelan's survival had been treated as an inconvenience rather than a miracle. Grave, exposing. The association's inquiry didn't stop at Calloway. It pulled apart every contract ASHWIND had signed over the previous 3 years, and what it found painted a picture far uglier than a single bad decision made in a moment of panic. Internal memos showed leadership had known for over a year that a single hunter was propping up their entire ranking, and had discussed, in writing, how replacing him quietly would be more profitable than continuing to pay hazard bonuses on his contracts. It wasn't an accident that almost happened. It was a business decision that had simply been waiting for the right gate. Steady, matter-of-fact building to firm. Public opinion turned fast, and it turned hard. Sponsors pulled out of ASHWIND's remaining contracts within days. Other top 5 guilds, sensing blood in the water, publicly distanced themselves from Calloway and quietly reached out to Kaelan directly, each one offering him a contract, a title, a signing bonus large enough to make most hunters retire on the spot. He turned down every single one. Not out of pride, out of clarity. He understood now, in a way he never had before ASHWIND, that the problem was never which guild banner he fought under. The problem was a system that let leadership treat its strongest people as expendable as long as the numbers looked good on a quarterly report. Soft, thoughtful. That clarity was the real gift the altar had given him. Not just power, perspective. Calm, resolved. Kaelan didn't attend the trial. He didn't need the courtroom's version of justice. He'd already gotten the only version that mattered to him the moment the truth stopped being something they could bury. Quiet transition. What he did instead was quieter and in its own way far more powerful. Warm, hopeful, rebuilding. He founded a new guild, not built on hierarchy, not built on hazard pay and silence, but built around a single rule carved above the entrance of its headquarters. No hunter fights alone, and no hunter is left behind. He recruited from the wreckage of ASHWIND's collapse, hunters who'd been under Calloway's thumb just as long as he had, given a second chance at something that actually deserved the word family. Warm, steady, Mira joined him first and became the closest thing the new guild had to a second in command. The one person whose loyalty had never once been in question, and the one person Kaelan trusted to tell him the truth, even when he didn't want to hear it. It was Mira who insisted the guild's rulebook be written down and posted publicly, not just spoken in recruitment speeches the way Calloway used to do it. Rules only matter, she told him, if they can't quietly be forgotten the moment they become inconvenient. Humble, earnest, building to quiet pride. Ferris came next, though it took him 3 separate attempts to even ask. He showed up outside the new guild hall the same way Doran once had. Except this time, he came alone, unarmed, and simply waited. He didn't ask for a position. He didn't ask for forgiveness he hadn't earned. He asked for a chance to prove that the man who gave the retreat order at Ashen Cathedral wasn't the only version of himself that existed. Kaelan let him in on probation, the same as every other former ASHWIND hunter who came looking for a second chance. No shortcuts, no exceptions, and no title handed out because of who he used to associate with. Ferris spent the next year at the bottom of every roster, taking the gates nobody else wanted, and slowly, quietly, earning back a trust he knew he'd never fully deserve. Kaelan let him try, because an ascendant, it turns out, still remembers what it felt like to need someone to believe in him. Emotional, sincere. Other names followed, hunters who had spent years under Calloway's leadership, doing exactly what they were told, not because they agreed with it, but because questioning it had never once seemed like it would change anything. Some of them cried the first time they were told, out loud, in front of the whole roster, that no contract was worth a life, and that any raid captain who left a teammate behind, for any reason, would answer for it personally. It wasn't a policy ASHWIND had ever bothered to say plainly. At Kaelan's guild, it was carved in stone above the front gate, in letters large enough that no one could claim they hadn't seen it. Quiet, bittersweet. Doran wasn't among them. Some bridges don't get rebuilt, no matter how much power stands on either side of the gap. Kaelan let him walk away that night in the hallway and never saw him again, which in its own quiet way was its own kind of mercy. Cinematic, uplifting. A year later, the man once left for dead inside a collapsing gate stood at the head of the fastest rising guild in the country, watching new recruits train in a courtyard where no one was ever expected to bleed alone.